Hi everyone, I'm JD from Willow Journals. Welcome back to my channel. This is a Journal with Me video working in my reading journal, and the book I'll be looking at today is called Medusa, The Girl Behind the Myth by Jessie Burton. I borrowed this book from a friend and I read it because this friend really liked it and recommended it. And when I was flipping through the book, I was really intrigued by it. It has lovely illustrations and a lovely design to it. Very, very interesting and engaging. And yeah, I thought I would give it a go. I printed it out here with a silver mirror in the shot as well, because that's sort of a theme that came up in the book. And I've just got this other mirror piece of ephemera that I'll stick onto the page. I had a frame that sort of looked like the frame of a mirror, but I couldn't fit that one on the page, but that's all right. I like the two mirrors on this page as is. And my thoughts, it was a quick read. It was a book I could have read in a day. If I had started it earlier, when I did read it, on the day that I did read it, I would have got it done in a day, because it was one of those books where I didn't want to do anything else. I just wanted to be in this world and figure out the story, find out what happened, and yeah, finish it. So it was definitely a page turner, very engaging. The layout, the design, the illustrations, that all helped as well to keep me wanting to turn the pages. And I really enjoyed it. I was actually really, really surprised by this book. On the surface, it can seem like a bit of a simple story, but it was quite deep in its themes, quite philosophical, and quite inspiring, really. I was, really, really surprised by this book. Really enjoyed it. It was very thought-provoking and just so much in it that I got out of it. So if you don't want to hear spoilers, I'll give you your warning now to stop this video and go read this book. Otherwise, stay tuned. Basically, it's the story of Medusa and how she became Medusa with the snakes on her head, and it's her falling in love with this guy, but the premise being that if he looks at her with the snakes, he will be turned into stone. And we also know that he's on a quest. He's got a mission to kill her. So he doesn't know that she's Medusa when they talk. So they talk on either side of a rock, and they get to know each other, and they connect and tell each other's lives. They tell each other their life stories and about the trials they've gone through and their traumas and that kind of thing. And yeah, really interesting book. So many deep themes, and it's quite meta too, as the book takes you on this journey with it, and it changes you as you read this story. For example, at the start, I really didn't like the snakes. I wasn't sure if I liked Medusa. Didn't really like her snakes. They creeped me out when I saw the pictures and when she was talking about them. But slowly through the book, I didn't mind the snakes at all. And I really liked the character of Medusa. And the snakes just became just not even noticeable. They were just there. And that was really interesting for me because, I really don't like snakes. They creep me out, they scare me. But slowly, by spending time with this character, the snakes became just familiar, I suppose. And that was very interesting because that ties in with this theme about how all of us have things that we don't like about ourselves. All of us have some dark parts to ourselves. And for her, it was, in a very visual way, a physical way, her literal snakes on her head. That was something that she didn't like and that she wanted to hide and be rid of. And we've got things in our lives that we hide and that we don't want to have, that we fight against, and that we think if we show people, they won't love us anymore, and that kind of thing. And so it was interesting. Her story is everyone's story. It's universal. And through the book, you learn about how she goes on this journey of embracing her snakes and essentially embracing herself. The snakes are sort of like a metaphor for those parts of ourselves that we don't like, a metaphor for the dark parts of ourselves, the parts that we wish we could get rid of, the parts that we're too scared to show people, the parts that people might not accept in us. So this is why it's like quite philosophical, this book, and quite universal in a very intriguing, interesting way, through this fantasy character and through a character that most of us would know in this culture, and to really get to know this character and come to like her and understand her and want the best for her. Yeah, really, really interesting. It's a different take, and I really enjoyed that. And then, so the whole time you're hoping, oh, please, can they be together, this Medusa and this guy? And that was the whole part why I'm reading it. One, to find out their backstories, and two, to find out if they'll be together. And then they finally look at each other. He goes to kill her, but he looks at her and he is turned into stone. And if I had known that was the ending, I would have been devastated from at the start. I would have been like, no, that's a terrible ending. But you realise, no, that is such a great ending, because what Medusa learns is that he couldn't accept her. At the end of the day, he was going to kill her. He couldn't accept her snakes. When he saw her snakes, he, you're a monster and got to kill you. And of course, that's a good thing then that she didn't end up with him in the end, because he obviously didn't love her anymore. And what she learned is self-love, essentially, is that she, even though he didn't love her snakes, by the end of the book, she loved her snakes. She just understood finally that they're part of her, and she didn't want to be without them anymore. They were part of her identity, part of her power. And so even though we didn't get the happy ending we wanted and that she wanted, she was fine. She was okay. And therefore I was okay with the ending. Instead of being devastated by the ending and heartbroken by the ending, I was okay, because here she was, empowered, owning her identity, accepting herself, loving herself, and goes with that deeper message, we don't need someone else to love us for us to be okay in the world. She didn't need this guy to love her, and she thought she did at the start. She's like, oh, I'm all alone, no one loves me, everything will be okay if I can just find someone to love me, that kind of thing. And it's like, no, she learned that she didn't need anyone's love to give her her identity and worth, that she had that all along. And like that journey, that transformation, she took us on that journey with us. And again, a universal thing, and such a good message. Like, I think this is a great book to give to teenage girls in particular, because of the message it has, that it's not about finding someone to love you and accept you. It doesn't matter if you can't love and accept yourself with all of your parts. We all have parts of ourselves that we don't necessarily like. We all have parts that not everyone is going to like about us, and not everyone is going to accept us. And if our worth and identity is based on other people's acceptance, then we're on shaky ground. We're on very shaky ground there. So this book is about identity. It's about claiming that identity and power. So some terrible things happened to her in the past, where her abuse, and she was powerless. And so it was also about her journey to claiming her power again. So that was a whole other theme that was really well done in the book too. So yeah, just so many deep themes, and I really enjoyed the philosophical themes of this book, the universal themes, told in this really interesting way through this character. And yeah, I love how meta it was, because the book took me on that journey. It didn't explain it to me, like, we must love ourselves, and it's about embracing our dark side and knowing that all those parts are our identity. And it didn't spell that out for us. It told it through the story so that you internalized it and learnt it yourself as you went on this journey And I find when you experience a lesson, you learn it better than being told a lesson. And that's the power of books and writing, and especially fiction. Fiction, like anyone can just say the truth, can say a fact. Oh, accept yourself. You don't need to rely on other people to accept you to accept yourself. You have your own power. Don't put your power into someone else's hands, because then you're on shaky ground. If you give someone else the power to give you your worth and identity, then you're on shaky ground. You know, we can say those things, but it's when we live through a story and go on a journey and experience it for ourselves that we internalize that message, and we've learnt it now. So the genius of this book isn't that it's just presenting these truths. You know, you have worth, you have power, you don't have to let anyone take away your power, you don't have to wait for someone else to accept you. You can embrace the dark parts of yourself. You don't have to fight against them. You know, embrace your snakes, whatever your snakes are for you. Isn't that a wonderful analogy? Love that. That it is possible. That at the start I was like, oh, these snakes are disgusting, to me then being like, no, they're actually familiar and I'm okay with these snakes now. Like, I couldn't just be told all this stuff. I needed to live it and experience it through reading this story. And that's the art of fiction and the power of fiction, to tell us truths that we can take on ourselves and not just know with a head knowledge, but we've lived it and experienced it, and now we know it with a greater knowledge than we would have if it was just facts and figures and, you know, that kind of thing. So I actually really thought it was like a genius of a book, the way it did that, so meta, because there's the story itself, and then there's all of that journey that I went on as I read it, how I was changed as I read it. And it's like two stories in one, you see. It's the story of the book and then the story of what happened with me. I went on my own journey reading this book. Like, wow, isn't that cool? So I was very surprised by this book, gave it 4 stars, and I think it's a great book for teenagers to read, for self-worth and stuff like that, or for girls. And yes, there are some parts that are quite intense, some trauma, some abuse, that could be triggering to some people, so there is a bit of a warning there. But I feel like, yeah, it could help people even who have gone through abuse, but be careful, just letting you know that as well. So yeah, really, really interesting book. I think this lady, Jessie Burton, has written another book or 2, and I'm keen to read whatever else she puts out. If it's anything like this, it would be amazing. Because yeah, most of these other books, it's been about just the story, and some books, yeah, I love the story and the story is wonderful and I'm so thankful for that story. But this book, it wasn't just the story, it was what happened in me as I was reading it. Love it. So good. Okay, hope you enjoyed my thoughts on this book. If you've read it, let me know. And if you want to read it, let me know. And be sure to journal your life, because your stories matter. I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys. A big thank you to my beautiful patrons who supported me in November. I hope you absolutely loved all of the extras this month. And if you would like to support me in December and get access to extra videos and printables, behind the scenes updates, and first access to any of my creations, the link is down below in the description box. The links are also down there to all of my journaling courses. The Reflections journaling course is running all through December if you would like to document your year for 2022. And if you would like to support my book fundraiser, the link is there to my GoFundMe page as well.